I've been hearing a lot about reparations lately, and recently a couple of high school students reached out to me to ask me some questions about it. This is how that interview went.
Our project is mainly about reparations. So our first question is, do you support reparations? If so, why or why not?
In some way, reparations sound like a good idea, but how are you going to get that? Are you going to get that by stealing from somebody who didn't commit a crime against you? Or are you going to spend possibly years digging up histories of paperwork to find out who did steal from your ancestors and tracing that property all the way back to where it is now? If there were some plan for reparations and everybody were given some sort of reparations today, would that really matter if it's all taken away tomorrow?
What do you think right now can be done to make the United States a more equitable place?
You've got Native Americans who a lot of people say have already received reparations because they get stipends from the government. They have special land reserved for them. But a lot of people will argue that's actually even more oppressive because it creates a dependency. It forces them to be dependent on the stipends. It forces them to live on land which they don't even actually own. With the United States and their treaties, and then they've broken the treaties and said, oh, you know what, we want that land now. And then they've come back and kicked them off. It's absolutely horrific. We almost kind of talk about this in terms of money, right? They've worked so many hours, and so at $15 an hour, let's come up with a number, and that's how much money they're owed. This isn't even about money. This isn't even about work. If I were to take you and stick you in a prison right now for 50 years, how much money is that worth to you? There's not enough money in the world.
Basically, the government should stay out of it and let society remedy itself.
Like I said, there have been some really horrific things that have happened in history, and it's not like we can just say, hey, we're gonna walk past that. We're gonna ignore that it happened. We can't. But at the same time, we can't continue to make things worse by saying we're gonna fix it by stealing from one person to give to somebody else. And even if you're able to recover that stolen property, what difference does that make if the government, the same government that allowed slavery back then, and with their courts and with their laws and everything else, if the same government that allowed it back then is going to continue to take that away from you until you have nothing left again? So would you prefer to get it and lose it again? Or are you going to say, hey, let's just get government out of the way to stop oppressing us so that we can start building our lives from scratch without any interference? 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we'll be in a much better place than if we continue a fight.
I want to add a couple extra notes to this. Most descendants of African slaves are Black. The way that reparations will be paid is through taxes. Now, when you give your money blindly to the government and expect that they're going to do the right thing with it, well, they've started the war on drugs, which, if you're Black, you're being imprisoned more disproportionately. There is, of course, systematic racism within all aspects of our society. And if you're able to make a good living for yourself and make a lot of money and become prosperous, well, you're going to be taxed more heavily. And you are going to be the one who's paying for those reparations. Does that really make any sense? It's time we fix the underlying problems which are causing oppression. It's time we stop arguing over distributing the money that the government doesn't have and stop the oppression that the government is enforcing on all of us.